I'm Jason, UFC, and today we have a story about UFC welterweight contender Jorge Masvidal slams Khamzat Chimaev after Chimaev called for a UFC title shot. This is what Jorge said about Khamzat. You miss weight by 8.5 pounds. Get the F out of here. Wow. UFC welterweight contender Jorge Masvidal has a message for Khamzat Chimaev. The welterweight division is in the state. I wouldn't say that. Earlier this month, UFC at the main event of UFC 286, the champion Leon Edwards defended his belt versus Kamaru Usman by a majority. Was it a majority? It wasn't unanimous. With the victory, Rocky retained his welterweight gold, but there wasn't any time for. I won't even say that. That's not even true. In the post-fight press conference, Dana White stated that Colby Covington would get the next title fight at 170 pounds welterweight division. However, just days later, Edwards stated he would refuse the. He said refuse. He actually said that as champion. The Brit stated that he has a say in who he fights, and Covington doesn't deserve the next shot. Wow. As a result, many welterweights have decided to shoot their shot for a title shot, and that includes Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev has been out of action since a catchweight fight win over Kevin Holland last September, but for that catchweight fight, Khamzat badly missed weight versus Nate Diaz. That was the original fight. Khamzat wasn't even supposed to face Kevin Holland. He was originally slated to face Nate Diaz, but the bout fell apart after Khamzat came in, I think 7.5 pounds over the weight. Nevertheless, the Khamzat Chimaev has called for title shots not only in the welterweight but middleweight division. Wow, that sort of talk seems to have gotten under the skin of Jorge Masvidal on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. Gamebred blasted Chimaev for his constant call-outs. He missed weight by 8.5 pounds. Get the F out of here, Jorge Masvidal stated on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani regarding Khamzat Chimaev. You are still talking about how nobody wants to fight you. Go and make weight before you talk about fighting. That's the first thing you know. Don't do steroids and don't make the effing weight you agreed upon as, and don't make, and I guess don't miss the weight. You're going to miss by 8 pounds and still think it's cool. You can call people out. Get the F out of here. Jorge Masvidal continued. I saw a comment of him calling out the middleweight champion Alex Pereira. Like, who the F are you? This is the world champion. You don't even have a win over a top 15 guy. Get the F out of here. Get the F out of here. Go to 185 pounds. Go effing be like the rest of us. Go put on your hard hat. Go put in your mouthpiece and get to work. Go fight and then we'll talk. Okay, I mean, there's really not much to say about this. I don't, respect to Jorge Masvidal, but I don't really understand, like, respectfully, who is Jorge Masvidal to tell Chimaev that he can't call out for a title fight? Jorge Masvidal, respectfully, I did a tiny bit of research. I'm an MMA casual, but I did a tiny bit of research to see, the Wikipedia page of each fighter. Jorge Masvidal's last win, right, was over Nate Diaz in 2019, right? So he's talking about fighting, basically, respectfully, a lightweight, right? Yet he's talking about Khamzat Chimaev has no wins over anyone in the middleweight division, which is that's a fact, top 15 guy. But I mean, Jorge Masvidal called out Leon Edwards earlier this year. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is like the kettle caught in the pot, but like, I don't understand this. Jorge Masvidal literally called out Leon Edwards for a fight. Jorge Masvidal is on a 3-fight losing streak. Chimaev has won 8 fights. since Jorge Masvidal's last win. So, like, why is he in his feelings about who Chimaev is calling out? Personally, I don't understand it. Like, there's a lot of people calling out champions, right? And I get, he's saying that, obviously he has the point that Chimaev did miss weight by 8 pounds. I mean, respectfully, you can't you you can't call out for a championship fight if if you miss weight by 8 pounds for a main event, right? Like it's very rare that that's gonna happen. I think Figueiredo may have done something like that. He missed weight and he beat Benavidez and they rescheduled the fight or something like that. Davison Figueiredo, I believe that's what happened recently. But as far as if you're like scheduled for a main event fight, non-title fight versus Nate Diaz, one of the biggest pay-per-views of the world, a non-title fight, and then you come into that fight and you miss weight by 7, 8 pounds, the UFC is probably not going to give you a title. If you miss weight by 2 pounds, 3 pounds meat, okay, we have to deal with it. But you can't even be 0.5 over for the championship fight. So if you're 7, 8 pounds over for a main event, obviously you have a lot more. Chimaev has a lot more to do before he gets a title fight. We haven't seen Chimaev. We haven't heard from Chimaev since last year with his victory over Kevin Holland. We have, no one knows what is going on with Chimaev, right? Is he a welterweight? Is he a middleweight? Before UFC 286, the only thing you heard from the UFC is that they were pushing very hard to make Chimaev versus Colby Covington. After UFC 286, now they're pushing very hard to make Chimaev go to the middleweight division and fight like Paulo Costa later on this year. So who knows what's going on with Chimaev. The one thing I would say about this is that, respectfully, Jorge Masvidal is fighting Gilbert Burns next. That's his next fight. So I'm not saying that he shouldn't be worried about Chimaev or why Chimaev is. It's just, if I was Jorge Masvidal, I would just be more concerned about Gilbert Burns than what's going on with Chimaev and who he's calling out if he's in the middleweight division or the welterweight division, right? Gilbert Burns is a very dangerous person. Gilbert Burns lost to Chimaev last year, right? Gilbert Burns is coming off of a victory over Neil Magny. Gilbert Burns is not trying to take a step back to Jorge Masvidal, right? So if I was Jorge Masvidal, my attention would be 100% not on Colby Covington, not on, Leon Edwards and the three-piece Minnesota, not on Chimaev missing weight by 8 pounds. It would be solely focused on Gilbert Burns, and that fight will happen at, I believe, UFC 287, Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. Let me know who you think is going to win that fight. And let me know your opinion of this story. Do you agree with Jorge Masvidal for calling out Chimaev missing weight? Or are you kind of like me and it's just like, listen, Chimaev can call out whoever he wants. He's won 8 fights since Jorge Masvidal's last victory, right? And Masvidal should probably be a little bit more focused on Gilbert Burns and not Chimaev or like Colby Covington or even Leon Edwards. But I'm Jason UFC. Today we have a story about UFC welterweight contender Jorge Masvidal slams Khamzat Chimaev after Khamzat Chimaev called for a UFC title shot in 2 weight divisions. This is what Masvidal said about Chimaev. You missed weight by 8.5 pounds. Get the F out of here. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button. And please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.